Hey everyone, welcome to the weekend edition of The Bullet for the 27th of May, 2023. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Your motley crew of co-hosts this week, joining me on my right, Mike Piwowarski. Of course, Mike is from Arms Room Radio and The Rundown. Below Mike, we've got Charlie Cook. Charlie is from Riding Shotgun with Charlie, Writing Shotgun with Charlie, Charlie's Gungrams, and about 33 other things. Below me is Tom Knighton. Tom is from Bearing Arms. I call him the attitude behind Bearing Arms, simply because you don't need to see who wrote the article. You just read it a little bit, and if in the first 3 sentences you get a crap ton of attitude, you know that's a Tom Knighton article.
I live to serve.
All right. And I want to remind everybody as we get started, if you're watching us on the Polite Society Podcast, Facebook, or YouTube feed, you can comment on those feeds. We'll get those comments in the studio here. I'll get them up on the air. We'll discuss them while we're live. And if you're watching us anywhere else, we might or might not see it. So you try putting it up. If you don't, if you need a response, if you want us to talk to somebody, you pretty much got to go to the Facebook or YouTube Polite Society Podcast feed. So let's go ahead and get started today, gentlemen. First story I got up is a story for the middle of the week. A new NPR-PBS NewsHour Marist poll. I keep reading that, and I want to say Marxist because, you know, it's NPR.
Truth in advertising laws.
Released Wednesday shows an alarming disregard by Democrats for the Second Amendment. This is a Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms press release. The poll conducted from May 15th to 18th revealed that 88% of Democrats think reining in gun violence is more important than protecting gun rights, while 67% of Republicans say protecting gun rights is more important. I want to go down. I want to get a couple comments in here. First from Alan Gottlieb. Constitutional rights are not something you vote on, nor do you casually give them up in hopes of creating some utopian fantasy. If criminals know people who do not have the means to fight back, they will exploit that situation. That is why we fight so hard day after day to protect the right that makes it possible for us to protect our families, homes, and communities. And he finished up with the right to keep and bear arms is enshrined in our Bill of Rights and most state constitutions for a reason. If we don't protect all our rights vigorously, pretty soon we'll end up with none of them. Guys, this Marxist poll, I'm not a Floridian slip. I'm intentionally doing that now. Polls are all about how the questions are asked, what the wording of the question is, and who they sample, and what the sampling looks like. And you can make any poll look like anything you want it to. This is just another example of that, in my opinion. Mike, I'm going to start off with you. What do you think, man?
You know, at least with some polls, like when you hear it's a, USA Today poll or an AP poll or somebody's come out with a poll, you got to guess and see the questions to figure out who paid for the poll. But with PBS and NPR, I mean, federal government, Congress-funded polls and organizations. So immediately when you see that poll, you're right when you say Marxist poll. And this was just another example, like you said, of let's ask the question the way we want to ask the question so we get the answer we want and then attempt to make a big deal out of it. And like you, Paul, I don't think I got past NPR and PBS and said, okay, zero credibility, what's the next story?
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, going around the clock face, you're next, man.
Yeah. You guys know NPR stands for National Putrid Radio, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. What's the problem? I've been to some of the gun law listening tours. I've been to 5 of them that they're doing here in Massachusetts, and I'm gonna say that they are not wrong. That the Democrats are not concerned about the Second Amendment. They want to do stuff about gun crime. Both of the ones that I went to this week, one was on school shootings or preventing school shootings. The other one was on one of the worst towns in the state. It was the impacted communities was the theme. Both nights, 2 different politicians got up and said that Bruin is ruining the state and ruining the state's gun laws and overriding what the gun laws are. And I'm like, did they read Bruin? Do they understand what it is? It doesn't turn Massachusetts into a permitless carry state. It just says the police do not have to ask for a reason in order for you to obtain a concealed carry permit or a license to carry, as we call it here. So, yeah, Democrats are not concerned about our gun rights at all, one iota.
All right, Tom, you're up next, man. Any thoughts on this particular poll, but from you?
Oh yeah, the big takeaway for me, the big thing for me is that was predicated on the idea that it's an either-or thing. You can either deal with violent crime or preserve gun rights, and it's not. It's not a zero-sum game. In fact, preserving gun rights will ultimately reduce violent crime. And it's just not gonna. You're not gonna negate that fact with all the polling in the world. Plus, like you said, we don't decide decide constitutionally protected rights based on polls. If we were gonna do that, we would have long abandoned ideas like desegregation, the end of slavery, women's suffrage, prohibition would have probably stayed in place a little longer or gone into effect earlier. All kinds of bad policy ideas have been popular.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we have to remember. Tons of bad policies have been popular. I do believe that ultimately the best ideas win, and I believe in the marketplace of ideas, but that doesn't mean that polling negates rights, because the people who lose their rights are usually going to be the people least, the minority groups. In a case like this, just, this idea that you can do a poll, well, people want to deal with gun crime, and, so therefore, give up your rights. Well, first of all, gun crime is a BS category, because I promise you, no one ever feels better that their loved one was stabbed to death instead of shot. When you're talking about violent crime, you need to talk about violent crime as a whole, because a firearm works just fine against a bad guy with a knife.
And
but
even
harsh
better
words
against a
don't
bad
work
guy
well.
with a cutlass. And there's at least one person on this panel that knows how to use a cutlass.
Well, I use a longsword.
I'm a saber guy.
A little different than a cutlass. But it's you don't bring a sword to a gunfight, and you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So if I'm the guy with the gun, I come out ahead. But if you don't have anything, it doesn't matter what they're using.
Yep.
If they've got a hammer, a crowbar, a baseball bat, you're pretty much screwed. And
Ask
nobody's
anybody
going
in Britain
to
about that.
Yeah, and yet when you're beaten to death with a hammer, it doesn't show up in gun crime statistics. Imagine that.
Let me get a comment in here real quick from Robert over on the YouTube side. He says, false choice fallacy. And that's, Mike was saying something very similar to that. It's not this or that. There's, we can get there. We can get to less gun crime by making less criminals. Make it, I don't know, possibly you might die if you attack the wrong person.
Yeah.
Well, I've been touched by shootings. I had a good friend killed at the Cafe Racer shooting in Seattle. Well, for about 3 seconds, I questioned my stance on gun rights. For about 3 seconds. And then I was like, no, it was still not the gun's fault. It was the guy with the gun. And let's be perfectly honest, if there had been one law-abiding citizen carrying a firearm in that cafe, that situation would have gone a lot differently, and my friend would still be alive.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next story, guys. Next one I got up here. This is happened on both Monday and Thursday of this week. This is from the Thursday one. A second federal judge expands block on Biden's pistol brace ban as registration deadline approaches. Another federal court has cast doubt on the legality of one of President Biden's unilateral attempts at implementing new gun restrictions. United States District Judge Jane L. Boyle of the Northern District of Texas issued a preliminary injunction against the ATF's ban on pistols equipped with stabilizing braces on Thursday in the case Second Amendment Foundation versus ATF. I'm going to basically synopsize drawing on the injunction issued against the ban Tuesday by a 3-judge panel of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Boyle said similar concerns over administrative procedure and Second Amendment rights were at issue in the case before her court. She limited her injunction to just the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. Let me go down to a couple quotes from the SAF press release. This is a significant win, said SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb. When Joe Biden took office, he immediately began weaponizing the ATF, and this new pistol brace rule is just a result of that strategy. It amounts to a dramatic shift in policy and leads us to conclude the administration is moving to change the definition of pistols fitted with these braces to be rifles, and thus subject to NFA. In the process, they're turning millions of law-abiding citizens into criminals. We cannot allow that without a fight. And then from our executive director, Adam Kraut, we're pleased that the court has preliminarily enjoined ATF's pistol brace ban before the effective date. The SAF will continue to aggressively litigate this issue to prevent the erosion of constitutional rights and prevent administrative agencies from overstepping their authority. I'm going to go backwards this time. Tom, I believe you've already written about this. What's your take on what's going on in the Fifth Circuit and the pistol brace ban?
Well, we talked about this Thursday when I was on here, and I find it very interesting that two different courts looked at this case and went, yep, ATF's wrong. Biden administration's wrong. The fact of the matter is when you look at how Bruin is written, text and history standard laid out for determining the constitution of gun control laws in general, and it doesn't differentiate between, those created by regulation by a federal agency or those voted on by a legislature. But the text and history standard basically says you have to find an analogous law from around the time of the nation's founding. And with the pistol brace ban, you're not going to find it. There's no precedent for it, and the constitutionality is, it's just not there. And I think we're going to see this eventually go to Supreme Court. I think we're going to see this regulation bounced, and I think we're going to see a stern warning to the ATF to knock this crap off.
There is not an 11th commandment, thou shalt not saw off the butt of thy musket.
No. No, I wouldn't want to.
No. I actually fired.
You could do it.
I fired, I believe it was a 54 or 52 caliber musket. 54, 52, whatever it takes. Anyway, I actually fired a musket several years ago, and I wouldn't want to take a 1/4 inch off. Give me a little bit more in the shoulder there. Give me a little bit more of the butt of that thing. Charlie, what's your thoughts, man?
Obviously, I think this is a good thing if we can get some people, even if it's just the people that are listed on the plaintiff, to give them their rights back. So that's okay. So that even if it's just the people listed, even if it's just the people listed on here who can have pistol braces and bump stocks. I know I saw Michael Garland's name on here, so I know that's a little bit with Michael's the bump stock guy. it'll be great. I actually, as you were reading this, I started thinking. I'm like, all right, what makes it? What makes a gun? What's the difference between a rifle and a handgun? And is it the size of the gun, or the size of the barrel, or the caliber of the gun? And then I started thinking, in stupid states like mine, if you have a handgun that has if you have, what's it, the Joe Piscopo gun from Johnny Dangerously there, the 88 Magnum.
Yep.
If you have a handgun that has more than a 16-inch barrel, it's a rifle, no matter what it is. So it's. I mean, I'm in the camp that it's all nonsense, and the ATF is obviously not supposed to make laws, and they can't change what the laws are and interpret them.
I was just thinking, quoting from Mr. Mom, quoting from Johnny Dangerously.
We got a Michael
movies quotes that you're going to be able to fit in one program ever.
Right, we got a lot of Michael Keaton going on here. Don't go chasing any waterfalls.
Mike,
Now we got TLC.
what do you think, Bud? Mike?
Well, gentlemen, I've got some breaking news on it. How about that? I just had a conversation with Cody Wisniewski, the chief attorney there for the Firearms Policy Coalition. If you recall, after this case, they went back to seek clarification about who it applied to, because on face value it was kind of vague. It said, it mock, and then the other two gentlemen there that were involved in the case, and the manufacturer of the device, and it left it kind of open there. So they went back to the judge, and the judge said this applies to any member or donating party of the Firearms Policy Coalition, whether that's in the past, present, or future. So if you happen to have one of these braces on there, and you've yet to make a donation to the Firearms Policy Coalition, you need to do so, because you'll be covered under this temporary restraining order if you've made a donation to the Firearms Policy Coalition. Go ahead, Paul.
And
you obviously want to jump in.
And you live in the states of Texas, Alabama, or Mississippi. That's the Fifth Circuit.
In the Fifth Circuit now, and I know they're still looking for clarification on that, because it's a federal order, so they're trying to see if it applies outside as well. But again, the FPC. Now, if you recall the Second Amendment case, now that was out of the Northern District. The FPC case was 5th District Court of Appeals. The Second Amendment case was of Northern District of Texas.
Yes.
And the judge there, she said, we're going to wait until the clarification comes from the mock case, from the FPC case, and then we're going to do the same thing. So that would also seem to imply that if you're a member of or made a donation to the Second Amendment Foundation, you would be covered. And if you
haven't, what are you waiting for?
Yeah,
right.
All I can think is there's some people today that just got unwoke, and now they're watching us for the first time, and they're getting this information fresh. So get your butts over to firearmpolicy.org and saf.org, make those donations, and get yourselves covered, because it's moving. And again, they're going to seek more clarification how wide it is, but now we've determined it's not just the complainants in this, it's everybody that's a member of those organizations.
Let me get a comment in here from Robert. I think I've got 4 commentators today. I've got you 3 guys, and I got the audience. So
Nice.
Let me actually hit that button instead of putting just me and Mike on the screen. Let me hit that button. And the classifications between rifles and handguns themselves are arbitrary. Yeah, that's accurate.
Right. Like what I was totally thinking of is, okay, so everyone gets their panties in a twist about the AR, the .223 caliber. What if you just have a 22? Because I remember being a gun guy. You're like, well, you hear about 22 rifles and you hear about 22 handguns, and then okay, well they both use the same ammunition. So what's the difference? Like if you had a 15-22 with a pistol brace on it, is it a handgun?
Yeah.
Right? Is it the caliber, or is it the way the gun looks? Is it the evil features?
It's always the way the gun looks.
Well, and I've been for a long time. Let's move away from the AR-5s or AR-15s and go to the AR-10s. They're 5 less dangerous, right?
Exactly.
Let's go ahead.
Exactly.
The next one, this one got my blood boiling, and I cannot remember, Tom, if it was a story you and I talked about, but I know I talked about it this week. This off WHYY.org. When Delaware lawmakers finally bucked the gun lobby nearly a year ago by banning the sale and possession of AR-15 rifles and other assault-style weapons, they allowed firearms owners to keep any weapons they already had. But there's a caveat. It involves showing up at a state police facility with the weapons and providing a thumbprint to the cops. And I'm gonna go down in the story here. Basically, you have to go, although there's not registration in Delaware, you have to go get a certificate that you owned it. You can get a certificate between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on the following dates at the following locations. May 27th, which is today, so you've blown it, at Troop 2, 100 LaGrange Avenue, Newark. June 3rd at Troop 7, 19444 Mulberry Knoll Road, Lewis. And June 10th at the State Bureau of Identification, 600 Bay Road, Suite 1B, Dover. But it won't be as simple as sending your receipts to the authorities. You need to do the following steps. You need to bring the weapon, which must be unloaded and secured in your vehicle. Provide a valid Delaware driver's license or identification card or a U.S. passport. Bring a dated bill of sale, purchase receipt, or record of transfer from a licensed firearms dealer that shows the deal was completed by June 30th, 2022. And, oh, by the way, if a weapon was inherited, they must bring a will or other documentation substantiating that claim. Also, be unarmed. Apparently, the AR-15 isn't an arm, so, when they go into the public facility. And even though law enforcement doesn't allow the state to retain copies of the certificate or other identifying information about people who apply for one, to get a certificate, the applicants must affix their thumbprint to the documents. So, baloney! I'm sorry, was that external? They've got registration.
Right. This is not the registration you're looking for.
It's probably a good idea they don't let you pick which finger to get fingerprinted, because I know what everyone would pick.
Exactly. Thumbprint, I'll give you a fingerprint. One finger, it's the tall one. I'll be giving it
It's
from
my
the
driving
car.
finger. Yeah, it's my driving finger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm curious to see what the turnout is. First off, how many troops are there in Delaware? I mean, there's Delaware's like that big. It's not very big. How many troops they got there? And I'm also surprised they didn't schedule it for February 30th and 31st to show up and do your registration. That would have been more apropos to them.
They probably thought about it. They probably can.
On the fifth Tuesday of the month between 2 and 2:15 only.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If you remember it, I know, Charlie, this is up by you. They had the couple years back when Connecticut, remember, passed their first round of assault weapon bans, and they estimated they had 100,000 ARs in the state, and after the year-long process, I think it was, if I recall, it was 7 people did the paperwork out of an estimated 100,000, and then they turned to they turned to the I can't remember the woman's name, the woman, the colonel in charge of the state police there, and they said, what are you going to do now? Are you going to go door to door and check them? And she told the governor and the state house, you go check. You want me to send my officers to the door of AR-15 holders? You go check. So I hope there's a similar response in Delaware, and I actually hope there's a similar response in Connecticut, because I don't know if you saw this one this week. Also, they've decided the 2 rounds that they had of assault weapon bans and ghost weapon bans. This week they've decided. Remember when we said you could grandfather them? Not so much anymore. Now you got to register them or turn them in.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
This is
we
going back
we're
to
not coming for your gun. We promise we're not
I
coming
wrote
for
about
them.
that one.
We just want to make sure we know where they are for your protection.
Right.
Well, this is that whole, why won't you let us pass some common sense gun regulations? Because, first of all, even if I thought these laws would do any good, and I don't, I'd be an idiot to think this is where it stops.
Yep.
It's not. It's going to be, okay, we're going to take this little piece now. Then we're going to take a little piece next. If every gun rights or gun control group in the country tomorrow got all of their legislative wishes passed, there zero will shut down. Zero will go, well, we did it, we're done. No, they'd come up with new things and just keep working that, on down the road until we may not have a total gun ban, but it might as well be.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I know I talked about this last week. Gabby Giffords actually said the silent part out loud. She said in an interview, I want to say it was with Slate magazine. Time. That's right. It was Time. And I remember because it was a Tom Knighton article. Now that I think about it for a second.
Yeah.
She said no guns, gone.
Mm-hmm.
And when her assistant tried walking it back, she stopped it and said no. So yeah.
And I think I've said it before. I think David Hogg for that, right? Before the Parkland shooting, everybody came out. No, it's just gun control. It's common sense reform. We just don't want machine guns or assault weapons. It's got nothing to do with it. And then David Hogg came out and said, all guns. We want all guns banned. And then you heard, what's his name? Beto O'Rourke's jumping on the wagon. We want to take all your guns, your AR-14s. You heard the president say it, Biden say it. Everybody's now come out and said it. Since that shooting, 4 or 5 years ago, because you're right. Before then, it was just, we're just going to take a little bit. It's just common sense. And as soon as that kid came out with his little coalition of other idiots down there, and now they say they want all guns, everybody's jumped on, and they're not afraid to say, it's all guns. It's all guns we want.
Yeah.
I just realized I have the perfect 80s cover band name now. The Coalition of Other Idiots.
There you go. That's it. Yeah.
I like it.
It's better than Men Without Hats. I mean, what kind of a name was that?
I'm going to go back to it's the Blues Brothers movie where they're playing at Bob's Country Bunker and they're like, these are requests. These mean nothing. Let's do the regular set. Turn the guns in. It's just nothing.
Well, I wrote something. Can't remember exactly what day because days bleed in together when you write as much as I do. But somebody made a comment that no serious politician wants a total gun ban, and I'm like, Gabby Giffords isn't a serious politician. She was a member of the House of Representatives. Her husband's a senator.
Yeah.
She founded one of the largest gun control organizations in the country, and she said no more guns. My thing is, some people will go, well, she got shot in the head. She's got difficulties. But my thing is either she's an eloquent speaker on the subject of firearm restriction or she shouldn't be allowed near a camera. It's one or the other. You don't get to switch back and forth. She was shot in the head. If she's not somebody who could, who you should put in front of a camera for those reasons, hey, I get it. But don't trot her out when you need to.
I paused for a moment when you said serious politician. I was like, is that right? Serious politician? And then I realized, no, I'm thinking of idiot politicians. There's a difference. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can't be all that bright to be a politician in the first place because why would you want that?
Oh, man.
Well, evidently to become a millionaire. That's the way to do it.
And by the way, I got to bring this up now that we're talking about serious politicians. Our friend Craig DeLuz is running for Congress in the Sacramento area of California. And I sincerely wish him the best. I sincerely hope he wins it and he does not get Washington, D.C.ified.
Well, I'll be his vice congressman, so I'll do my best to keep him on the straight and narrow.
All right.
Keep those vices going.
That's it. All the vices he wants, I'll have them for him.
In fairness, it's Congress. There's a lot of vices.
Certainly are.
And where was that list of people that went to Epstein's Island? Anyway.
It's on Hunter's laptop.
Oh, that's not real.
It wasn't real until it is.
Yes.
Right.
That's the part that tickled me. Before I was against it? I remember that too.
That's what tickled me. It was Russian psyops right up until the moment that they were like, "Oh wait, no, it's not."
Yeah. Whoopsie.
Conveniently after the election.
Shocking.
6 years after the election, but
Yeah.
and I gotta say, Tom, I gotta give you a little bit of crap. Everybody who watches the show on a regular basis knows Tom comes up from time to time, and quite often we'll have a little bit of an issue with Tom's connection. It's in beautiful shape tonight. However, occasionally when I look down and Tom's speaking, he's doing an awful impression of a really bad martial arts movie where the lips start moving, then 3 seconds later you start hearing the voiceover ends, and 3 seconds later the lips stop moving.
But he looks
You
good.
cannot match my kung fu.
He is kung fu fighting.
Your kung fu is weak. Mine is mighty.
See, with his hands on his face like this, I thought he was Macaulay Culkin.
That's where I was going for. That's where I was going.
Though I was wondering if maybe he wasn't trying to do the guppy thing. Anyway.
Hi, all that gun control.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
my
going to hell for that one.
Okay. You won't be alone.
Now,
let's move on to our next story here. Michigan governor signs red flag gun law. Questions linger over enforcement. This is off, believe it or not, pbs.org. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed a red flag law that claims to keep firearms away from those at risk of harming themselves or others. New Mexico probably previously was the last state to pass that law in 2020. It goes into effect next spring and will allow family members, police, mental health professionals, roommates, and former dating partners to petition a judge to remove firearms from someone without being charged with the crime. Tom, have you ever dated somebody that wasn't quite on center to start with?
oh, God. I still have nightmares about it. And the sad part about it is she has the same first name as my wife, so that makes it even more awkward.
That's how he got her to date him.
Yeah, okay, fair. It's like everyone's got that relationship that's a little off kilter, and what I think of when I hear, oh yeah, dating partners can request a red flag law or red flag order, is the abusive partner who is glad to get out of the relationship, and it's like, oh, they threaten to kill themselves over what happened, so you need to take their gun so they don't do it. And now you've disarmed their target. Great job, guys. Great job.
What I want to know is how far back, and thank goodness I'm not in Michigan, although I will be later this year when I go see our good friend Rick Ector. I want to know how far back this dating partner goes, because I myself was not, when I was in my early 20s, I was adventurous. And we're going to leave it.
What?
We're going to leave
Everybody
it
does
at
it in
that.
college, Paul. It's okay.
35 years ago, could somebody I dated 35 years ago file for a red flag against me in Michigan? I mean,
well, there's another question. How do you verify somebody was a dating partner?
there is that.
Well, you'll have to show them the mole.
I know.
Mole or gerbil? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Right.
so we've established
But it's
that Paul has dated Warren Beatty. Is that it? No, Richard Gere.
It's
I'm
like-
sorry.
Yeah, seriously though, there was an incident in Colorado where a woman claimed to have been in a relationship with a police officer who happened to be the same police officer who shot and killed her son in the line of duty in a justified shoot.
Yep.
Remember that
It was
story.
apparently a suicide by cop, but she claimed that they had been in a relationship and that he was dangerous and couldn't be trusted with firearms. It was a straight-out revenge situation. Now, it was detected, it was caught. The guy didn't have to, the headache of dealing with it. But how many other people got away with it?
Well, and if there had been a red flag law there at the time, she could have went and gotten that done, gone to the judge, because remember, that hearing's done ex parte, and the judge is listening to one side of the story. This cop may have ended up without firearms. He would get the right to go to work,
Right. It would have destroyed his career. It by the time it got straightened out, who knows what kind of damage could have been done. Plus, as a police officer, to say he made some enemies, all it takes is one of them finding out what happened. Hey, this cop can't shoot me now. And if that can happen once, you cannot tell me it will never happen again. And that's why the whole dating partner thing is sketchy to me. Red flag laws are a bad idea in general. I think all of us can agree on that. But it's especially bad when you broaden it up to a point where you suddenly don't to show any proof that you have the relationship you claim. Law enforcement officials can have credentials. Mental health professionals have credentials. Family members can show records showing, yes, I am this person's brother. I can, there's records that can be shown to show, yes, I have this relationship. Dating partners never have. It's part of the reason that I have a problem with the so-called closing the so-called boyfriend loophole, because how do you know that I dated somebody? It's anybody could claim that I was an abuser, and what could have been a simple assault because they threw a drink in my face and I slapped them, or whatever. Not necessarily someone's finest moment, but not domestic abuse. And suddenly their gun rights are gone because, oh no, we were dating. The hell?
All right.
And you tell me girl never claimed.
Now,
you can never tell me that. Yeah, but I had a girl once who said that she and I were going out when I was like, it was news to me. They're like, hey, but this guy was like, hey, I met your girlfriend. I'm like, great. When do I get to meet her?
You're on mute, Paul. You're also kung fu fighting.
We lost you, Paul.
No more kung fu fighting for me. Robert on YouTube says, is there a requirement that you reach a certain base to be a dating partner? And I want to tee off on that one a little bit.
Yeah, finally some baseball comments. Thank you. Yeah.
When 2 years ago, this coming July, there was a Mag 40 in Sioux Falls, and Charlie Cook and Amanda Suffolcool and Robin Sandoval were all here for that, and we all went out to dinner on Sunday evening. Charlie, did we go out on a date? Are we dating partners now?
We did sit next to each other, and the girl sat across from us.
Yes.
So maybe we're all dating. I mean, it's not like we're in Utah.
You're a fourple, quadruple.
Right? Like what? Good question. What is considered dating? Is it getting to a certain base? Is it how many times you've gone out? Is it the things that you've done when you're together? What constitutes dating?
Well, and in this day and age, a lot of people, like my kids' age, they don't date per se. They go out in this group and then like maybe pair off later to do other recreational activities. But the dating landscape is a lot different than when we were young.
Sure.
So how do you define it? Again, how do you define it?
The whole red flag thing is a ridiculous concept to begin with. And I know we're talking about the dating laws portion of this that they're putting into it, but there's many states out there that have red flag laws where the person doesn't even have to be known to the person that's been accused of carrying a firearm. It could simply be the neighbor driving by and says that they saw a guy with a gun and they think he's threatening, and then they could file for a red flag lawsuit or like red flag seizure against him. Folks, listen, everybody out there, if you think you need a red flag law, you don't. Every state has provisions in place. If somebody makes a threat against somebody with a firearm, the police can come and take that person away and take the firearms away. If there's a mental health issue with somebody with a firearm, every state has laws in place that allow the police to take that person to a mental health professional to get examined. You see the difference there? When somebody has a problem, we take the person with the problem away from the guns to the place where they could get help, as opposed to taking the guns away from the person and leaving them there by themselves with their own problems. With, Paul, like you and I talked about, with, things like cars, knives, baseball bats, hammers. We're going to leave them there with that and their problems so they can go deal with it. But the firearm,
household chemicals, they can be turned into explosives.
Exactly. Right.
Household chemicals, they can be turned into chemical weapons.
Ammonium nitrate, diesel fuel.
The red flag law is just another front, another ruse by your governments to take your firearms away without due process. Cut and dry. All there is to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a quirk of that, I think, is to normalize the idea of taking guns from people.
Yes.
You do it a red flag.
Absolutely.
Everything they do is incremental. It's like, well, we already do X, so why not let us do Y?
Yes.
We should be able to ban AR-15s because we already ban machine guns. We should be able to take all your guns from, or take all of X gun from your house. We already do red flag laws. It's all about incrementalism, and this is an idea of getting us used to the idea of police coming and taking someone's guns away.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of doubling down on this gun control since about a month or two after Bruen. Once the Democrats realized what Bruen really meant, as opposed to just being some in theory definition, now that they see what's going on with Bruen, I think a lot of the locations are doubling down on stupid and just go for broke. Just do it. Just do it. If it takes 2-3 years for the courts to settle it, do it now, and at least we'll be safe, and the children will be safe until that time. I really think they've stepped up their aggressiveness on gun control.
Another comment I want to get to here real quick. I believe this is Charlie Chambers, but I have no proof. It just says Facebook user. Paul and Charlie make a great couple. I've observed it.
Great. Thanks, Charlie.
And
Charlie used to be a good brand.
I know for a fact Charlie Cook's married to a woman, so we don't have to worry about that.
Brent Amsden, who Charlie and I both know, and who helps us out a great deal when we go down to Gun Rights Policy Conference at AmCon.
Great guy. Brent
says gallons of bourbon. It's going to take more than that. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, tell me about it. I have a question for Tom, who is our local writer. I'm trying to learn more about writing, so I have a question about this article. The second sentence in the first paragraph, New Mexico previously was the last state to pass a red flag law in 2020. Now, did this get put in here? I looked to see who wrote it. It was PBS, so there's going to be a slant. Are they saying this because they think they're primed for having a new red flag law, or in 2020? I'm assuming this is probably pre-COVID that they did this, or early on in COVID with all the lockdowns and the shutdowns and the pandemic and all the other nonsense before the government stopped functioning and the world stopped. I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of that sentence is in the article.
My knee-jerk reaction is to say that sentence because there was a word count that they had to get to.
That could very well be a possibility, right? Because it's a nonsense sentence that has nothing to do with anything.
Right. Or I found this when I was researching the story, and I feel it's really important to show my editors I actually did research. And by research, they meant they type red flag laws into Google.
And they couldn't fit it anywhere else in the article and have it make sense, so they just stuck it in a random place.
Put it right there. All right.
I would argue it doesn't make sense there either. But yeah, it's not even a great sentence in the first place. It's constructed oddly, in my opinion, it really just doesn't contribute anything to a story about Michigan. the red flag law. Okay, if you want to say this makes Michigan the X number of states to have this law, the previous being New Mexico back in 2020, it feels a little different. It's a little better, I guess, because a lot of stories said the same thing about constitutional carry. When Georgia passed it, I saw several sentences not unlike that regarding constitutional carry.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's just, I think it's just trying to either pad a word count or, I found this interesting thing I thought was interesting in research, and I'm going to use it come hell or high water.
Gotcha.
It's not
All right.
deeply written.
I want to get to our next story if I could. This one out of Washington State. Ferguson makes case for Washington's new semi-automatic rifle ban. The Attorney General Ferguson argues that Washington's law clears the bar, pointing out how you're talking about the Bruin decision, pointing out how U.S. authorities have a long history of regulating weapons, including clubs, knives, and fully automatic rifles. Get this quote. Just like bazookas, machine guns, and grenade launchers, assault weapons are not covered by the Second Amendment because they are not tools of self-defense. Rather, they are designed to injure and kill as many people as quickly as possible, his brief says. Guys, going back to the history, text, and tradition that the Bruin decision refers to, private citizens could and did own cannons in 1791, could and did own full-blown warships in 1791.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the people's right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yep.
I don't hear so long as it's relevant for self-defense against a burglar.
Nope.
It's not in there.
It's
funny.
Yeah. When the British marked on Lexington and Concord, they weren't going there to collect musket balls. All right? They were going there to collect personally owned cannons and storage.
But they did collect musket balls.
Oh, they did.
They ended up getting some. Sure they did.
America!
Right. Incoming fire has the right of way.
I dare you to argue with it.
Karen would.
Next one, I'm just thinking, Charlie and Mike, we've got to get Tom, and we got to get Tom together with, and I don't know who the hell would be my third. We've got to get Tony, Simon, and Tom together on a show.
Well, it sounds like you don't want me or Charlie, so I'm not sure
why
you
right,
brought
so
us
we're
in.
out.
No,
All right, well, listen, it's been awful nice. Thanks for tuning off early. We'll see you guys later.
I'm just, I thought I had a hard time with Tony keeping a show on the rails, and that tonight,
Right.
Anyway,
it's that attitude you love so much.
I'm telling you. I'm going to go. The next story. This is just new today. That came into my attention today, so it wasn't discussed throughout the week. If you want to sue the state of Illinois, there's a bill on the governor's desk. You'll need to do it in one of only 2 counties in the entire state. Residents looking to sue the state of Illinois on constitutional challenges to state law would only be able to file lawsuits in Sangamon and Cook counties in a measure ready to be sent to the governor. Senate passed House Bill 3062 late last week. Thursday, Representative Jay Hoffman, a Democrat out of Swansea, explained the reason the Democrats are bringing the bill in the House. Over the past 3 years, the Attorney General's office has been forced to respond to, I would say in many cases, frivolous lawsuits that have strained the office's limited resources, Hoffman said in a Thursday floor debate. Whether they were COVID-related restrictions, whether they were masks, whether they were vaccines, whether they were on safety acts, or whether they were assault weapons ban, and the list goes on and on. Republicans said if the Attorney General's resources are spread too thin, the legislature shouldn't have passed other bills allowing the office to sue the gun industry or to go after pregnancy resource centers that don't offer abortions. State Rep Dan Ugasti out of Geneva said there are remedies if the resources are stretched. A state can petition a petition can be filed and the cases can be consolidated already in a venue of the Illinois Supreme Court's choosing. Guys, this is, well, if you want to sue us, we're going to make you travel a couple 100 miles, depending on where you're at, and then we're going to decide if we want you to let us go on from there. That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm not up on my Illinois geography, so I don't know one of those counties. But I know where Cook County is.
Cook County, Chicago, and Sangamon is on the southern end at Springfield.
Yeah, I just looked it up at Springfield.
So, in other words, funny how both are venues that would be favorable to those particular politics that tend to dominate the state, and not necessarily the constitutional issues at the heart of the matter. Wonder how those two got picked. Oh, yeah, obviously. I'm sure it was nothing about trying to create a chilling effect on lawsuits in the first place and constitutional challenges. No, it was just they picked two counties out of a hat, and they both happen to be very left-leaning.
And the fact that they've got 5 total lawsuits against their assault weapons ban, and they're getting their backsides handed to them in all 5 lawsuits. That can't have anything to do with it.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Right. I think if this guy could let all these lawsuits go, let them go our way, I think we'd be more than willing to hug it out with them for a little bit. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
All right. Like, really.
I got
you guys are picking on us, and we're losing too many lawsuits. Okay.
It's costing their citizens way too much money, and now they're concerned.
Yeah.
Right. Now they're concerned. They weren't before. Now it costs much money.
A Great Start Shooting School. Brooke says, well, I can come and join you so you can have someone almost as pretty as Tony. Well,
Not possible. Not possible.
Here I was thinking I was a fairly good-looking person, but yeah, right.
That's the stroke, Paul.
Oh,
that was out loud.
Oh God, that was great.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night. Mike is a good ender.
Robert says they get that way. Then they get judges that are favorable to the tyrannical government. Yeah, that's absolutely dead center there. And the next one is out of Indiana. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett announced changes to the city's public safety plan that will target gun violence in the city. Hogsett plans to go before the city county council and propose a ban on semi-automatic weapons, raising the age to purchase a gun to 21, and ending permitless carry and concealed carry in the city. If state preemption is overturned by the legislature or by the courts, fat chance, there will be no delay in implementing the most basic safety measures, Hogsett said. That is why today I am announcing they will submit to our city-county council a package of gun safety measures that, if passed, will immediately become law should state preemption be abolished for the city of Indianapolis. Private parties will be able to get city resources, including metal detectors and IMPD officers, to create a gun-free zone if they choose. Hogsett also said the city will be targeting nuisance properties in the city. He said the city prosecutor's office, as well as the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services, will enact policies to allow the city to penalize those maintaining nuisance properties, gun ranges. That's what he's going for. If property
I thought that was City Hall.
Yeah. If property owners with constant gun issues fail to respond with common sense measures like adequate security and banning the possession of firearms, will now seek to hold them liable under state nuisance law for their role in maintaining a threat to the public's safety. Thank goodness for preemption laws.
Yeah, I'm actually on board now that he said common sense. Now that he said common sense, I'm good with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because common sense gun, the term common sense gun law has never been misapplied ever. So yeah, I'm with you.
No. Listen, I'd have to go back and take a look at the preemption law there in Indiana. I know the one we have down in Florida actually has teeth to it, where if somebody, if these local politicians decide they want to go to break preemption, the governor can remove them from office. You've seen our governor do that before, haven't you? Our governor can remove them from office. He can just immediately expel them, and the individual has to fund their own defense. They cannot use the city funds, county funds, or state funds to do such when it gets done. Wow. Short of that, if that's not in there, you've heard me say it on here before, and I'll tell you to anybody that listens to me. Politicians need to lose the right of absolute immunity when it comes to these things and be given, limited immunity, just like police officers have, which is good, because it says as long as you don't break the law or violate the Constitution, you're protected with qualified immunity. This guy is standing up and making a public statement saying, "I'm going to go break the law, but it's okay because it's for the children, right, or whatever, it's for new roadways or whatever the hell he's doing, whatever his reason is."
It's okay because he's a trained professional.
He should be relieved from office. He stood up and said, "I'm going to violate the law." They should let him do this and then charge him with it and make the example of him. Get rid of this absolute immunity nonsense. Give him qualified immunity, or charge him under their preemption standards, and let's be done with this. How many times we got to watch this guy waste the city's money, the state's money, and the taxpayers' money because he wants to make points for his next re-election campaign?
Yeah. All right.
I'll tell you this. I was in Indianapolis for the NRA back in April, and we saw the drunk bicycles riding around. They had police officers on, I think they had them on Segways, they had them on little four-wheelers, and they had them on horses. They didn't have them in cars. I don't know what the hell's going on in Indianapolis. I didn't see any police cars, but I saw, like every other motor vehicle from the history of time until the cars. They're riding bicycles. They got a big wheel in the front, a small wheel in the back. I say good day!
When I was a kid, I loved my big wheel, man. I could grab that bar that for the one brake the thing had. Right. I could do some wicked power slides with those things.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think they're riding those around too.
All right, one last story, and this is a Tom Knighton story off of Bearing Arms. It's titled...
Oh, that jackwagon.
Yeah. Big win for homesick sailor forced to surrender guns. I remember that I've reported on this before. Tom, you've written about this before, and you wrote about it again yesterday. A big win in Hawaii for a sailor who was feeling a little homesick, got help, and everything turned out great for him until he decided he wanted to go buy a gun. And apparently, could you refresh my mind? Was he had been out of the Navy when this happened, right?
My understanding is he was still in the Navy. He was just stationed in Hawaii.
Officer,
yeah. And it's when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Norfolk. I'm from Georgia. It's not a quick trip down for a weekend, but if I got really homesick, I could hop in the car and be there, be here by Saturday morning. From Hawaii, that's not really an option. So getting homesick is one of the challenges of being stationed someplace like Hawaii. And, he did what we would want somebody to do in a situation like that. He went and said, "Hey, I'm having a hard time, help me." He got the help. Then he goes to put in for a gun permit, an ownership permit in Honolulu. And they're like, "Have you gotten professional counseling?" Well, he, was filling out this paperwork under penalty of perjury. So he said yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, you can't have a gun then. He was never diagnosed as a risk to himself or others. You do not forfeit your gun rights by virtue of being homesick, of being a little down, maybe having a little anxiety. None of that disqualifies you from gun ownership. And so he went to court. The court looked at it and said, "Yeah, you can't do this." It should never have happened. It should never have been on anybody's radar. It's just absolutely bonkers. Especially when, as a member of the United States Navy, he could still be handed a firearm within, the course of his duties.
Yeah.
But he couldn't be trusted with one at home.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we're at the top of the hour, guys. It's time to start shutting this down. I'm going to go reverse order from where I started. Tom, if you would, please plug your stuff at Bearing Arms, plug your Substack, and anything else you want to promote today, man.
Okay, well, obviously, you can find me at Bearing Arms. You can also find me at tomknighton.substack.com. It's called Tilting at Windmills. So I cover generally non-2A stuff, but obviously the 2A makes an appearance there from time to time, too. And that's all I got now. I've got something in the works, but I'm not ready to formally announce anything yet.
Okay. And I got to say,
Teasers, I love it.
That Substack stuff, Tom comes up with some interesting stories, specifically when it relates to education. The ones that have been catching my eye lately have to do with colleges and the unique way that the thinking goes there. Anyway, Charlie, writing Shotgun with Charlie, and anything else, man, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. The most recent Writing Shotgun is on YouTube and in podcast form. Paul Markle from Student of the Gun is my guest in that show that I filmed in Indianapolis. The most recent article on Armed Lifestyle magazine for Writing Shotgun with Charlie is on Beth Alcazar. And I have been writing about the gun law listening tours they're doing in Massachusetts here at news2a.com. So that's where you can find all the stuff that I've been up to recently. Thank you.
I got to say, I'm remembering back to when you actually released that Beth Alcazar Writing Shotgun with Charlie. And I think on that, you two had entirely too much fun filming that episode.
She's so much fun. I drove down to Birmingham and to film the show with her, and she had all these Alabama gifts for me, like some Grapico soda and some different snacks that they have down there, and all sorts of really cool stuff. She's an amazing person and wonderful to be around.
Grapico is awesome.
All right. Mike, Arms Room Radio, you just wrapped it up here a little bit ago. The rundown, anything else you want to promote, bud?
Yeah, listen, if you don't want to have fun on a Writing Shotgun with Charlie episode, go look up mine. Nothing but great, boring time together. So disappointing.
Boring non-stories.
Boring non-stories. Let's see, armsroomradio.com, Saturdays 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on 50 stations around the country. You can go to armsroomradio.com, see where we are, or you can listen to us live on the simulcast internet feed there. Rundown.us, we're on, I think it's 6 p.m. now. I don't know. Craig just tells me when to be there, and I'm there. I hope it's the same way when he's the congressman. It just tells me what to do. So. And I think next live appearance I think looking forward to is the Legally Armed in Detroit with Mr. Rick Ector, July 29th and 30th. I think a lot of us will be up there next to the large gathering of all of us Second Amendment folks. So I'll be up there.
I've confirmed that Susan and I are going to be there. No big deal, but Susan's going to be there, and that's a big deal. So. Now, on my end, that does wrap up my broadcasting week for the Second Amendment Foundation. I do want to invite everybody 6 p.m. Central Time on Monday. Come join us for Polite Society Podcast when the aforementioned Craig DeLuz will be our guest. We'll talk about what it's running like for Congress in a pretty deeply blue state. And he's not exactly a deep blue kind of person. So that is going to wrap it up for us today. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. We'll see you